It's another Saturday here on the Good Mike Work Commentaries YouTube channel. Welcome to the Wingy. Happy Saturday to one and all. We got a loaded podcast this week, guys. Lots to get into. We got Hall of Fame news. We got Dynamite and SmackDown results. We got all sorts of gobs of WWE and AEW news, respectively. We've got a death to discuss. We've got a big court case as well involving a former WWE wrestler that has come to an end to discuss. And we got a couple of pay-per-views coming up on the horizon, Dynasty and a little one called WrestleMania. So we're going to be discussing everything going on this week in wrestling, and it should be a nice, fun podcast. Big weekend again here on the channel. You should have me 3 straight days. We're going to be here tomorrow for a big watch-along, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And on Monday, I plan on being here for another Raw review. I think my plan is to be here every Monday leading up to WrestleMania. Unless on Monday we just see a advertised pile of nothing. You know, maybe there's a chance I'll skip it, but expect to see me the next 3 nights. Get used to this bald head. You're going to see a lot of me, especially tomorrow as we have a 4-hour pay-per-view to watch together. And today's podcast will definitely go over 2 hours because we got a lot to get into today. So just want to welcome you all here. Thank you for being here. Happy Saturday. Happy Wingy Day. And yeah, this should be a fun one. On the menu this evening, I'm going to say hello to everybody in the chat in just a second. In terms of what we're going to get into today, we're going to talk about, probably open with, the dude you see on your screen, former Detroit Piston and Chicago Bull, NBA World Champion Dennis Rodman, being inducted into this year's WWE Hall of Fame class of 2026. He'll be going into the celebrity wing. I'll give you my thoughts on that. We're going to talk about Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia in July. Seems to be up in some serious jeopardy here. That show might not happen, and depending on how the situation over in the Middle East goes over the next several months, WrestleMania could be in jeopardy too. We'll talk about that. WWE's hopeful to have Braun Breaker back by WrestleMania. We'll get into that. We got a Street Profits update, some news on Tama Tonga, and we've got the big angle that dropped on Wednesday night. Toni Storm attacked, or should I say murdered, and she's going to be out for the rest of the year. We're going to talk about why that might be. We've also got an update on Hangman Page. Mercedes Moné drops 2 more championships, and also we've got some information coming out of that WWE shareholder lawsuit, some unredacted court documents revealing that Tony Khan was one of the bidders to purchase WWE when they were for sale back in 2023. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. We will get into as well the Ricochet tweet controversy. I'll give you my thoughts on that. Also, we'll talk about Ted DiBiase Jr. acquitted in that Mississippi welfare fraud trial, which is mind-blowing. And we've got a very sad death to report on this week as Dennis Condrey passed away yesterday at the age of 74. In addition to that, we'll talk about last night's SmackDown. We will talk about this Wednesday's Dynamite, which hit a really good rating, but the show was off. Crowd was flat. Not the big, exciting show I was expecting to see after that bonkers revolution. Feel like Dynamite fell flat on Wednesday, and that's a shame because they had a lot of people tuning in that night, and there was just some sort of off vibe about the show. But we will get into what we saw there. Will Ospreay return to the ring, and we got a big match set for next week between Swerve and Kenny, and Dynasty is starting to take shape, and that is coming up in just a couple of weeks on April 12th before WrestleMania. So I think that's the week after Easter Sunday, which would be 2 weeks from tomorrow, I guess. Or Easter Sunday is 2 weeks from tomorrow. This will be 3 weeks away. So anyway, that is going to be basically what's on tap for this afternoon. Thanks again to everyone who is here. Do me a favor, smash the thumbs up button in there if you don't mind. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. That would be nice. And let's see who's here in the chat. Let's just roll through a quick few shout-outs here, and then I will dive into the news because Saturday is also a work day for me. I'm going to go in and work a little bit tonight, but that's not for a little while. So we got plenty of time to bust out all of our chatter this evening. Good to see Mike Rouse. Good to see Rodrigo. We got Tatanani. We got Trey Lusado in the house. We got Isaac 7690. Good to see you. Ryan Adams is here. So is Garrett Osborne, David Brown, William Cullen in the house. Good to see you. Surge. We got Melissa is here. Ben Espinoza. We've got Chaz Medeiros, Red Raven Rucker, Shell Shock, Jim. Who else we got down here? Scrolling. Ricky Zalvadar, Arthur Jones, Stephen Harris. Good to see you. Ajax Johnson. And a lot of people usually start filing in the first 30 minutes of these podcasts. So I will do some more shout outs later on. Any super chats that come through, I will be sure to answer them. And like I said, it's going to be a pretty big weekend here on the channel. And we are back for another WrestleMania watch along tomorrow night. Now, when I'm looking at, we've been doing watch alongs now for about 4 years, I think. And of WrestleManias 1 through 30, there's only 5 left that we haven't done. WrestleMania 1, 25, 27, 29, and 30. Now, WrestleMania 1, I already have a set night for that one. I already know when we're going to do a watch-along of WrestleMania 1. I think I'm going to plan that for the Thursday before WrestleMania. We're going to do a doubleheader. We're going to be doing a predictions video for everyone during the day, and then at night for the members, it's going to be members only, we're going to watch WrestleMania 1. That's going to be Thursday before WrestleMania. So that leaves us with 4 other WrestleManias between WrestleManias 1 and 30 that we have not done. I put up a poll on YouTube this week, WrestleMania 25, 27, 29, or 30, and WrestleMania 30 ran away with it. I think it had something like 60% of the vote, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to check right now. But yeah, tomorrow we are going to be watching WrestleMania 30. It's pretty wild that, 58% of the vote, 27% went to WrestleMania 25, which means we're also going to watch WrestleMania 25. We'll get that one done before this year's WrestleMania as well. But tomorrow, WrestleMania 30, feels wild to be doing a watch-along of a show that I was doing YouTube. I was 4 years deep in YouTube by the time this show aired, and I did predictions and a review and everything on it. So it's kind of funny that that's how many years have passed here. And now tomorrow, we're about to do a watch-along of, a show that I did a YouTube video on. Just crazy, just wild how we are blowing through all these WrestleManias. So tomorrow will be WrestleMania 30. Now, next week, I think a week from tomorrow, is not Easter Sunday. No, it's not. Not quite yet. That's 2 weeks from now. So we got to figure out what to do next week. That'll probably be WrestleMania 25. And then sometime before WrestleMania this year, I'm not sure what Easter is going to be like for me, if we're going to do one or not. And then April 12th is Dynasty. So that's it. So we only have a couple of more weeks left to bust out these WrestleManias. So I think it's going to have to be the Vault one. And then WrestleMania 25 and Easter is up in the air. Anyway, we'll get into all this shit tomorrow when we're actually doing the watch-along, but just wanted to make you aware of what's on tap for tomorrow. And, of course, Monday we should be here for the Raw review. All right, enough of that bullshit. Let's get into wrestling news. We got a ton of it here. And I want to open up with, when I'm organizing my notes, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do WWE stuff first, then we'll move into AEW news, then we'll do other shit. So the news that we're going to start off with here is going to be WWE news. We got 4 little stories to get into, 5 little stories, and then we will move into AEW stuff, which is going to be headlined by the Toni Storm injury, and then we'll move on to the Tony Khan WWE purchase and Ricochet and all that stuff. But we're going to open up with Dennis Rodman. He is the newest inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2026. I think ESPN broke this news, and whatever. I mean, Rodman is an appropriate person, I think, to go into the celebrity wing, but Rodman never did anything with WWE. He did everything with WCW. He was a big part of that NWO angle for a couple of years in a row there. And when you look at that, and, I think how memorable that stuff was. As a matter of fact, Dennis Rodman missed a practice, and I can't stress this enough, during the NBA Finals. We're not talking about practice 5 games into the season. We're talking about NBA Finals practice. He missed it, I think, in 1997 so he could be on Nitro. And he would wrestle in 2 back-to-back Bash at the Beaches. We've watched at least one of them. I think we might have watched both on the channel. I can't remember, but we've definitely done 98. And I actually think we've done 97, too. We probably have done both of them. But Rodman, of course, was alongside Hollywood Hulk Hogan. He was a part of the NWO. He wrestled a couple of matches at Bash at the Beach in 1997. I think it was Giant and Luger taking on Hogan and Rodman, and I think they won that match. Giant and Luger did. The following year, Bash at the Beach 98, which is right here in San Diego, same building where I got my COVID shot, Rodman and Hogan teamed up to defeat DDP and Karl Malone. And that was, that was during the NBA Finals as well, right after the NBA Finals, when the Bulls were facing the Jazz. It was just so fucking bizarre how that was even possible and able to be done, and how he was allowed to do that and get in there, risking injury, him and Karl Malone both, when they have NBA multi-million-dollar contracts. Feels like rules were different back then, but him missing that practice during the NBA Finals in 97, when they were right in the middle of their second three-peat, doing that to be on Nitro is just wild. That right there, I think, deserves a Hall of Fame induction. You're missing NBA Finals practice with the greatest basketball dynasty, arguably, of all time, headlined by Michael Jordan. I still believe if Jordan would not have retired, they would have won 8 straight championships. But he took 2 years off, and the Rockets took a couple. But if it weren't for that, I think we would have had some serious shit go down in Chicago with like 8 straight championships. So that is just crazy that happened, that he was such a part of that, and it's memorable. You still remember it to this day. That's 28 years ago. 29 years ago was the first one in 97, and then 28 years ago in 1998. Even though it was a couple of matches, a few TV appearances, and two matches on pay-per-view, I think everybody remembers the Rodman days in the NWO. So from that standpoint, when you're looking at other celebrities that go in or people who have like come through WWE, as a matter of fact, we lost Chuck Norris this week. And I can't remember, did he go in? I should have looked that up before we started the podcast. Did he go in for his involvement in the 94 Survivor Series? And I think he might have come in to do something else as well. And of course, Walker, Texas Ranger preceded Monday Night Raw before every Monday before the show. So, when you think about people who have come in or done stuff in wrestling or passed through celebrities, things like that, I have no issue with Rodman going in as a celebrity, but, I'm still sitting here, I got Demolition, so I should probably just be happy with that. But I'm still sitting here just wondering where Rick Martel is and Bam Bam Bigelow. It's just like, somebody went to Triple H, let's put in Rick Martel. Like, Rick who? Rick Martel, the model. He's a model? No, fuck that. Let's phone up Dennis Rodman. Like, what the hell is going on here? But I'm cool. It's fine. I got no issue with Dennis Rodman going in. I'm sure his induction should be weird. What's he up to these days? Is he still freaky as all hell? Or has he kind of toned it down? He's getting old now. You can't dress like 1990, what year would that be? 1997 or late 97, early 98 Gold Dust. You can't do that forever. Come out dressed like a Christmas tree with a ball gag in your mouth. But whatever he does, I'm sure it'll be entertaining. And Dennis Rodman going into the WWE Hall of Fame, even though he made his mark in WCW. So big news there. I'm cool with it. So now we're up to AJ Styles, Demolition, Stephanie McMahon, and Dennis Rodman. I would assume there might be one more. What do you think? We get one more? One more? Maybe one more. We will see. Sticking with WWE news, there is some fear, and I think this is kind of pretty obvious due to what's going on, the situation with Iran, and the fact that we could be on the fucking verge of World War III here. And WWE's got their big contract with Saudi Arabia, and the administration that they nut gargle at every chance they get is going to possibly be responsible for blowing this fucking deal they have with the Saudis. And Night of Champions is currently scheduled to be in Saudi Arabia, I believe, in June. And this is according to WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select, and I quote, report that sources in Stamford believe that it is doubtful at best that the Night of Champions PLE will take place in Saudi Arabia as planned due to ongoing conflicts across the region. This could change, but that's the word for the June show as of now. So that's great reporting by WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select, but if you just pay attention to what's going on globally, that also seems pretty fucking obvious. That Saudi Arabia is very close to that conflict over there and everything going on. They could be targeted as well. United States citizens could be targeted as well, and if you send planefuls of people over there, I don't know. So right now it feels like, at the very least, the June show is probably not going to happen. And WrestleMania at this point seems like we're not sure yet. We're not going to know. But we did read also, it wasn't in this specific report, but WWE, I believe, does, and they'd be stupid not to. They do have a backup plan in place. So I think they are aware that WrestleMania may very well be, or may very well not be, in Saudi Arabia next year. And if it's not going to be, they've got, I guess, a plan B, if that is so the case. Hopefully that plan B is the Superdome in New Orleans, where it was supposed to be originally, I believe, right? So, or no, I think it was 42 supposed to be there, and then they moved it. They took it out of there. I forgot what the fuck. But anyway, put it in New Orleans. That would be pretty great if they went back there. But one thing that sucks is that, if this is like an it's an ongoing situation. It's just ever changing. You don't really know. And I just hope that we're not getting into December and January and they still don't know, you know? Like if they're just not, like, I feel like if the conflict, if it does not feel safe by the time we get to like fall, like at the end of the summer, late fall, we're getting into Halloween and Thanksgiving and shit like that, and it doesn't show any signs of getting better over there, I would cancel the fucking thing and start planning a WrestleMania for here, because WrestleMania is already difficult enough for these monkeys to book as it is. Just look at some of the shit we've been watching from WWE programming on TV lately, you know, and it seems like every single year we have the same conversations. This doesn't really feel like Mania season. And the last thing I think WWE needs is to not know where the damn show is going to be. That's too much distraction, too much what ifs. It might even affect how you're booking things, especially if you got some big plan for Sami Zayn next year. You might not want to do that if they're not even going to be over there. So there's a lot, I feel like, at stake with next year's WrestleMania, and it sucks that we put this ourselves, or WWE has put themselves in this position due to money and due to greed and due to this insane deal. So it was up to me. We just wouldn't go over there at all, but due to some of the conflicts now, it's making some of these shows sketchy, and if I was a member of the WWE roster, I would be a little bit freaked out. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't want to go. So we will see how all this proceeds, but right now it looks like June would be a long shot for that pay-per-view to even happen, and I don't know what that means for the contract. I don't know if that means it's frozen, you know, because I think they have it's a multi-year deal, but also they're contracted to provide a certain amount of shows. So if they can't do that, I assume that it rolls over and they still have to fulfill their end of it, even if it means extending the deal longer. Don't really know. But in terms of Night of Champions, up in the air, sounds like. We've got an update on Braun Breaker. This is a somewhat positive one. This is another update or report from WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select, who said that a source at WWE TV this week expressed a sense of optimism that Breaker could be cleared to return before WrestleMania. There is said to be a plan in order for Breaker at Mania if he does get cleared. So that would be one little bit of good news that I think WWE could really use, because injuries have really goofed them up, you know, ever since SummerSlam, ever since Seth won the title. It felt like the wheels have come off, you know, first Seth, then Breaker, then Reed. To get Seth back and to now possibly get Breaker back, I think that would help help some of the discombobulation we're feeling creatively from the WrestleMania card, because there's so many matches that WWE is kind of unsure of what to do right now. And one of the biggest ones is Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins. What to do with Seth if Breaker can't go? You also got Gunther sitting there, who was supposed to face Rey Mysterio apparently, but Rey sounds like he's not going to be cleared. Gunther wasn't even on Raw on Monday, and I would hope anyway, I hate to assume anything when it comes to WWE, but I would hope that part of the reason he was off is because, well, we don't know what to do with him. We're going to keep him off TV. Think about it. By the time we get to next week's Raw, we're going to have a plan for him since, Rey is not available. Or at least a plan B, just in case Rey is. But the closer we get, we're now less than a month away from WrestleMania, so if Rey is still 3 weeks away from being cleared, you're going to have no real time to really build too much of that, even though there's already a story there in place with those guys. I feel like Gunther might show up, might be returning to Raw on Monday to begin whatever his plan B for WrestleMania is, which I have no clue what it would be. All I do know is I have no interest in seeing Gunther wrestle for the United States title or the Intercontinental title. So keep him out of those matches, but you already got Brock and Oba, and Gunther is this retiring, career killer guy. You don't want to just put him in there against anybody, but you could do Gunther and LA Knight, I guess. There's nobody else really to retire, I don't think, right now. And then in terms of Breaker, it's going to be Breaker and Seth Rollins. But if Breaker is not cleared, then what does Rollins do? Some people have mentioned that Chris Jericho could be one of the guys under the hood. And if they can't figure out, if Breaker can't get cleared, you could have Jericho reveal himself as one of the masked men and attack Seth Rollins. And although I would like that, I don't know how good a Chris Jericho WrestleMania match would be. He's old, guys, and Jericho was great in his day. I'm sure there's still things he can do. He wrestled at a high level in AEW despite his age, winning the world title, winning a few titles there, doing lots of stuff. But this is WrestleMania. This is against one of the best in-ring wrestlers in the world, Seth Rollins. Can you keep up with him? I mean, Rollins is going to have to carry this whole fucking match, I would think, and I would hope that Rollins wouldn't have to lose to him after all that. So if you did Jericho, that would be, I guess, fun for the fans, but, like, how do you really book that? Jericho would have to lose. Seth can't lose to another AEW mystery opponent at WrestleMania. You can't do that again. You'd have to beat Jericho. So we'll see. Hopefully on Monday, maybe we get some more clues based on what WWE does with Rollins and whatever as to maybe what the direction is for Breakker or in terms of his status. And maybe even Paul Heyman might bring this up on commentary. And one little piece of evidence that might... that also might be good news here is that on Monday, we saw Heyman instruct Theory and Logan Paul to target the Usos to go after the tag team titles. So I think Paul and Theory may have been a backup plan for Rollins, one of those two, if Breakker wasn't ready. So now if WWE is hopeful or optimistic that Breakker will be ready, they can go on with other plans for Logan and Theory at WrestleMania. And if it's not going to be Breakker, maybe Rollins just does something else. We'll see. But anyway, let's hope that Braun Breakker, he's young, he's a freak of nature. You know, guys like him can generally overcome injuries and surgeries rather quickly. We all remember what John Cena did, coming back 4 months early at the Royal Rumble back in 2008. We're like, what the fuck? We didn't think he was supposed to even be back until after WrestleMania, and here he's showing up at the Rumble and winning it. So I'm hoping that Breakker, you know, is similar in that he just has the ability to heal fast. He can be back because I think that's really going to help the WrestleMania card and help plug some of these holes that have riddled this card. All these injury holes that we've had. It's been ridiculous. So anyway, fingers crossed that Braun Breakker makes it back. Quick little updates also from WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select. Been wondering where the Street Profits are. I haven't seen them in a while. Well, apparently the Street Profits have been discussed creatively and that a return could be in the works. There were sources indicating that a return to TV could also be in the works, but did not note if that could happen before or after WrestleMania. So the Street Profits, I don't think Montez or Dawkins is injured. Like, what the fuck are you not using them for? How can you not think of something to do with them? They're a tag team, you know, and the fact that they finally started to be discussed creatively, great. All this discussion, you're just going to bring them back to do what they were doing. You know, they've had 2 or 3 breaks and returns now where, you know, even they tried to do the stuff with Lashley and whatnot, and just nothing is really stuck. And I think Montez and Dawkins extremely underrated. They're too good to be just sitting there doing nothing. So let's hope that the Profits do make their way back to TV at some point. Maybe they can even get in on some WrestleMania action. That would be nice. Maybe they even return at WrestleMania. Who knows? Still don't know what they're going to be doing with the tag team title situation. We did have a tag team title change last night on SmackDown that we will talk about, so maybe they can come back and get in the mix there. Who knows? But I'm ready to see the Street Profits back. Feels like it's been a year since we've seen them at all. Apparently, Tama Tonga. This is according to Andrew Zarian, the Mat Men podcast. Apparently, Tama was fined a significant amount of money by WWE for posting to his Instagram or TikTok, I forget which one it was, just a short little video of him hanging out during WWE rehearsals. And this is before the doors open. Everybody hangs around the ring. They got the big clock up on the Tron to let you know when doors open, so everybody get the fuck out of there before the humanoids start filing in. And he just kind of takes a casual video, and there's some people hanging out on the barricade, a few people sitting in the ring. Solo is sitting on the ground, I think, or whatever, and whatever. But apparently that's a big no-no, and it is kind of like an unwritten rule that you're not supposed to post anything from rehearsals. And if you do, you get in trouble. There was the fellow that posted the Keith Lee spoiler from NXT a few years ago. He was with Veer, or was it Spanky? Who are they? Veer and Spanky or something? Anyway, one of them posted Shanky. One of them posted something from NXT and got in a little bit of trouble. Might have even gotten fired. I can't remember what happened. But Tama has apparently posted these type of things before. So I feel like he's been warned or reprimanded before, and he just did it anyway. I don't know why. He felt like, to me, he had a little bit of extra pep in his step last night on SmackDown. You know, maybe like, oh shit, I don't want to get a second strike. I mean, I guess getting a fine is the equivalent of like getting written up at work, which I'm 48 years old and I've still never been written up for anything. Adults shouldn't get written up. But anyway, Tama Tonga got written up, and he got fined for posting a rehearsal video. And a lot of people were pointing out, and I was one of them, that it's just so funny, the double standard, because WWE has the WWE Unreal show. I mean, they're posting full-on rehearsals on Netflix, but that's also very controlled. WWE controls what they want you to see, what they don't want you to see. They don't want you to see everything. They want you to see what they want you to see, to control the narrative that way. So it is funny how you can get fined as a wrestler for posting a picture or a short video of people hanging out before the show, but you can have full-on writer meeting rooms, writer room meetings posted in the Unreal. It's stupid, but also kind of funny. But anyway, Tama Tonga fined. I'm sure everything's fine there, and I'm sure he's learned his lesson. The only thing I could think of is, you know, if he was told not to post shit and then he kept posting it, was he trying to get fired? You know, I don't think so. But I was like, maybe he wants to leave. And I'm like, well, maybe if I post a video or something, they'll just can me. But he's fired or fined, excuse me, and everything appears to be fine other than that. So that kind of does it for the WWE news. We've got some AEW news to get into now. A few little tidbits here on Toni Storm, Hangman Page, Mercedes, Tony Khan, and Ricochet. And let's start with the Toni Storm stuff. Now, we're going to do a more thorough Dynamite recap here in a minute. But Toni Storm, as we saw on Dynamite, she was set to have a no-holds-barred match with the woman she beat at Revolution, Marina Shafir. So this was supposed to be a rematch on Dynamite, and then as we saw prior to the match, you got Luther backstage losing his mind, and he can't even talk, and the cameras go in, he's like, come in here or whatever, the cameras go into the dressing room, and you see Toni Storm laying on the ground with a huge pool of blood under her head, a bouquet of flowers there, and a broken champagne bottle. So she was attacked or murdered, and they've got like a little whodunit here storyline. So Mina Shirakawa, who was there, she flips out and is screaming, and she demands to face Marina Shafir in Toni Storm's place. And they did a replacement match on Dynamite, which took a lot of fans by surprise. We'll talk about that later. But it was then reported by Fightful Select that Toni Storm has been written off of television and is expected to be out the rest of the year. Here's what Fightful Select had to say. Toni Storm was written off AEW TV on Wednesday. She was laid out in a deliberately non-contact angle that was sprinkled with Easter eggs to encourage speculation on who took her out. As things stand, Storm will not be in the ring anytime soon. Originally, she was planned to wrestle on March 18th, but was not cleared. Since then, we're told that AEW is prepared for her to not be cleared to wrestle through 2026 at minimum. There are already plans in order for the attacker storyline and a creative direction for it. So, bunch of stuff here. First of all, we got a whodunit angle. First person that comes to mind is the person that confronted her after her victory at Revolution, Ronda Rousey, who showed up at AEW. And when I first saw the angle, I was just kind of assuming it was going to be Ronda. Then we hear this story from Fightful Select about how she was set to face Marina Shafir. Mina and Marina confuse me. And they're both in a match together on Dynamite. But Marina Shafir, she's supposed to face her. They advertise it, and then during the day, she doesn't get cleared. Now, granted, this is after an AEW pay-per-view, and I would imagine a whole bunch of wrestlers are all in the concussion protocol and got injuries and banged up, and some of them might be cleared. It seems like a lot of times after these crazy AEW pay-per-views, they struggle to have people cleared for the following Wednesday's Dynamite. So that's what I first wrote this off as. I'm like, Toni and Marina were beating the shit out of each other at Revolution. Toni took some shots to the head and some kicks and all that, so she might have just got dinged up. But then when you hear that AEW is not expecting her to be cleared through the rest of 2026, the only thing that would keep you out that long would be like a neck surgery or a knee surgery. She didn't tweak her knee. She looked fine after the match. I mean, at least we don't know. It didn't appear that she did. So it doesn't look like she's suffered any sort of an injury that would keep her out a specific amount of time, like 10 months. So if you just use your head here, there's one possible explanation for this, and it might not be any of our business, and it isn't, but if it is true and we're all thinking the same thing, holy shit, I'm so happy for Toni and Juice. All the best to them. And if that's the case, great. If not, I hope everything with Toni Storm is okay. I hope she doesn't have any sort of serious injury that's going to require surgery, that's going to keep her out for the year. I'm hoping a bun in the oven is really what's happening here, but we don't know. Either way, all the best to Toni, because that sucks to lose what I think is the greatest pro wrestling character in the business right now. To lose that person for almost a year or possibly more really sucks. So now, if it's going to be a whodunit angle, this is going to take a year to resolve itself. So if AEW has plans in place, creative plans, they don't even, if basically they have an attacker already in mind, you don't know what the deal with that attacker is going to be by the time we get to next year. If they're even under contract or what Rousey's doing. So I don't know who they have planned to actually be the attacker. One idea that I have that I think would be great is if it was Bayley. Bayley's in WWE. Well, we don't know when her contract is up, but apparently there was some rumblings that it is. She did make a comment a while back that her contract was up somewhere around the end of 2026, which would line up perfectly for a Toni Storm return. So, I think it would be fun if, Toni Storm returns on Dynamite while next year, January, February, March of next year, Toni Storm returns. While she was gone, Mercedes Moné, who we're going to talk about in a minute, she climbs atop of the women's division and rules it, wins the title, holds the belt for a while. Toni Storm comes back and says, kind of like the Austin hit and run. You had the most to gain by getting rid of me, by getting me out of the way that cleared the path for you to the championship. I know it was you, Mercedes. I know it was you that attacked me. And then from behind, a debuting Bayley slides under the rope, assuming that Sasha's on the stage and Toni's in the ring, and bashes Toni over the head with a champagne bottle and reveals that it was her all along. Well, how did she do that when she was under contract at WWE? Well, she's BFFs with Mercedes. She's good friends with Statlander. She snuck in on Mercedes' bus, snuck right in, just hid in the bathroom, drove the bus right into the building, and then put on a hood, snuck through the corridors of the arena. Or where were they on Wednesday? Fresno. Attacked Toni Storm with the champagne bottle, left some flowers, and fled into the night. And then we find out that it was her a year from now. Might be fun. Well, Bayley said she's not leaving. Nobody knows anything about what Bayley's doing. I put this on Twitter, and of course, the stands are just the funniest to count. I don't block them or even hate them. I just think they're unbelievably pathetic. And so I had 4 copy and paste, carbon copy Bayley accounts yelling at me that Bayley said she's not leaving WWE. I'm like, children, shut up. Just shut the fuck up. So anyway, we don't know what the fuck. I just think that'd be a funny idea. It's just a simple little fantasy book is all. It's not serious. It's completely non-serious. We have no idea who it's going to be, what's going to happen, what the situation with Bayley is going to be. Is she going to jump when her contract's up? Is she going to stay in WWE forever? Nobody knows any of that stuff yet. Just some fun, random speculation. But Toni Storm now out for the rest of 2026. And I just hope that the reason she's out is good news, not bad news. Hangman Page, of course, who lost in the main event at Revolution to MJF, and now cannot challenge ever again for the AEW World Championship, which apparently now has been revealed just to be a gentleman's handshake. So there was nothing contractually written here. And I've been saying for a while now that if you just wait it out, wait a year or two, Hangman could go back heel or something, and then he can backdoor himself back into a title shot. No real big whoop to me if that's the way it was. But after his loss, he is going to be taking some time off. This was according to Sean Rossap of Fightful Select, that this week Hangman Page was set to take some time off from AEW TV. We're not told if this was happening immediately or in the coming weeks, but the plan is for him to take some time off. So that would make sense to take a little bit of a break. I know he's taken a couple breaks before when he had his kid or kids. So after a loss like this, a violent loss where you got syringes sticking through your cheek, and now storyline-wise, you kind of have nothing going on because you can't challenge for the championship, be a good opportunity maybe to take 3 months off. So if Hangman is going to do that, we got Ospreay back now, fill the void. Hangman comes back later, and then we can revisit how this is all going to work with him not being able to challenge again for the AEW championship. So all the best to Hangman, though. Hopefully your cheek's healing. Ouch. Anyway, how about this one? Mercedes Moné continuing to prove good mic work wrong. Now, when she was winning all those championships and collecting all the belts, of course, the freaks, who are obsessed with her and stuff, they're all mad. She's holding people down and calling her shots, and she's insisting on winning and all this shit that children say. Well, one thing that I was pretty adamant about is that I just did not feel like she was going to go on like a 12-match losing streak and drop all of these belts. I thought at least a couple of them were going to have to be done in chunks. And she lost 2 more championships at Rev Pro High Stakes. I think it was yesterday, last night, early this morning, whatever it was. She lost the Body Slam Women's Championship and the Discovery Wrestling Scottish Women's Championship to Alexis Falcon. Whoever that is, congratulations to her. Mercedes got a really nice reception from the Rev Pro crowd after dropping those belts, and I believe she's down now, if my count is correct, to 3? Are we down to 3 championships left for Mercedes? So she really has gone around and dropped them all, and I said that she was going to drop a couple of them, a couple of the bigger ones, because she dropped to Alex Windsor and Persephone and some wrestlers that are either signed to AEW or already work with AEW in some capacity. But going to these indie, shows and just dropping it to people, I didn't think that Tony Khan would send one of his top contracted stars out on a losing streak that long. Just didn't seem likely to me. But she's doing it. And so now all of the, I never had a problem with her collecting the belts to begin with because I'm not a fucking child. But those that did and had all these problems with it, made YouTube videos about it, slobber and spit for days over her winning championships, fucking wrestling championships on indie shows. And all the ones that insisted that she was doing this and selfish and stepping on throats and all that. Like, what's your explanation for this now? Like, what sort of backpedaling are you doing now? Because obviously you're full of shit and just an obsessed little bitch, hating somebody like Mercedes Moné to that degree only because she was winning belts and carrying a bunch of belts. That's what triggered you. Now she's dropping them all. Are you untriggered? Like, I don't know. Because it seems to me that this is all very, very positive stuff for independent wrestling. For someone like Mercedes, Sasha Banks, the track record, a WrestleMania main eventer, multi-time world champion, to go out to these outfits, bring in the publicity, bring in a big name, win championships, lose championships. There is nothing whatsoever negative about that. These promotions, I'm sure, were happy to have Sasha. And she's going out there and she's doing business and she gets appreciation from the crowd after doing so. So what the hell is wrong with the people that, like, I don't mind if she's, like, not your favorite. I don't care. Like who you like. But the cross-eyed, drooling haters that are so up their asses over her, like, what's wrong with you? This is great. Anyway, she dropped 2 more belts. She's down now, I believe, to 3. So I'm sure they will all go away eventually. And then once all of her belts are gone, that's when she's going to collect the big prize. And that's going to be the AEW Women's World Championship. I believe she will either beat Tekla or Statlander for that in the future and probably have a nice, healthy run on top after the belt collector story completes, which seems like we're getting closer and closer to that happening. All right, let's see here. Let me just get a little refresher here. All right, we are still good. All right, back to my notes. By the way, I know March Madness is going on. There's all sorts of games. So if you're watching that, I understand. And also the audio to this podcast will be pushed out to the podcast feed later on tonight. But let's talk about this next story. This is kind of wild. So due to that WWE shareholder lawsuit, we have gotten some details about the other companies who made bids to purchase WWE when it was up for sale in 2023. Now, Brandon Thurston of Post Wrestling reported that according to newly unredacted court documents, 3 other bids other than Endeavor were submitted to purchase the company. One from Liberty Media, Liberty, one from an equity firm called KKR, and the other one from Tony Khan through a company called Base 10. And here's what Brandon Thurston reported on Post Wrestling this week. By a considerable margin, Base 10's bid price was the lowest of the 4. Tony Khan's company offered $76.83 per share. KKR offered a range between $90 and $97.50. Liberty bid a range of $95 to $100. Those were offers that would have converted WWE shares to cash. Meanwhile, Endeavor's winning bid was an all-stock deal valued at $95.66 per share before synergies. Instead of cash, WWE investors' shares simply converted to the same number of TKO shares when the deal closed. 3 years later, TKO's share price trades at about $200, essentially doubling the bid prices of 2023. To put these offers in more plain terms, based on our analysis and the number of diluted shares in WWE at the time, those bid prices convert to full company valuations approximately as followed. So Base 10, the company that Tony Khan used to submit his bid $6.9 billion. KKR, $8 billion to $8.7 billion, Liberty Media $8.5 to $8.9, and the winning bid from Endeavor was $8.5 billion. So Tony Khan only submitted a bid of $6.9, but what's interesting about that, when you do that, that gives Tony Khan access to WWE's financials. And I don't think anybody really thought at the time that there was a realistic chance that the Khans could buy WWE. And maybe they didn't either, but being able to submit a bid means you can kind of get access to some very, very private information that you wouldn't normally get. So I don't know if Tony Khan was maybe trolling or maybe doing this to get his hands on some of those financials. Would be a smart business move, if you ask me. Now, Thurston continues, notably, while as many as 20 parties expressed interest in acquiring WWE, none of the four bidders were major media partners or other companies positioned to use WWE's valuable broadcast rights. Companies like NBC Universal, Disney, Amazon, and eventual media partner Netflix were widely discussed in the press as potential suitors, but now we know those large media players didn't place bids at all. Neither did any part of the Saudi Arabian government, despite swirling but unfounded rumors of an imminent acquisition on social media one evening in the days just after the M&A sale process was formally announced. And we remember that when we heard that Saudi shit, it was like, I wouldn't be surprised. But apparently they didn't even submit a bid, at least officially. There might have been some, under the table discussions and some private, what ifs and whatnot. But in terms of an actual bid submission, nothing from the Saudi government. That's kind of good. The lawsuit over the merger is set to go to trial in June. If the plaintiffs prevail, they could win monetary damages that would be paid out to investors who held WWE shares during the relevant period. So that's the only real thing that's going to happen to WWE if they are not successful in this lawsuit. They are going to get a pretty big, they're going to have a big payout there to some investors. But that's interesting news there, that because thanks to that shareholder lawsuit, we get this information. And I think is exciting and awesome as 45-match WrestleManias sound. And I'm not talking about 45 matches across both nights. I'm talking 45 matches on each night of WrestleMania, totaling 90 matches. As great as that sounds, I'm really glad that this didn't happen, because we just saw, prior to AEW coming into existence in 2019, we saw what wrestling monopolies can do to the pro wrestling scene here in North America. It sucks. We do not need one guy owning all the shit. So absolute worst thing that could possibly happen. So we are very happy that this didn't happen. Don't really think it felt like it was going to anyway, but it probably wasn't. I couldn't even classify it as dodging a bullet because I don't think it was really ever realistic, but it's a good thing that it wasn't because Tony Khan, owning both WWE and AEW while he's a co-owner of a football team and he owns 6 other things and he doesn't sleep. I just don't know how good the quality of the programming would be if Tony Khan insists on booking both of these fucking companies. So, whew. We dodged a bullet there. But interesting info there coming out of that WWE shareholder lawsuit. It feels like WWE is just always in a lawsuit, isn't it? Between the Vince stuff and this shit and everything over the decades, civil trials and the ring boy scandals and the steroid scandals, and my God, it just never ends with this damn company. Here's some more interesting news. Oh, wait, no, I don't want to talk about the DiBiase thing yet. What we need to do is we need to talk about Ricochet. We're going to talk about the big Ricochet controversy this week. And, of course, this was a tweet controversy. Now, this is a story that should not have been this big. It got blown up, way out of proportion and a lot of, angry people about all the wrong things. But for those who don't know, just to give you the gist of it, as we know, Ricochet is very prominent online. He interacts with the fans in character, much like MJF does. And also Ricochet he's one of those wrestlers that just gets an inordinate amount of hate and awful things spewed his way. And most of the time he just barks back. If he's trolled, he trolls back. And it's funny watching fans, especially just the nameless, faceless fans tweeting, all their shit behind anonymity. He barks back at them. And it's funny watching them kind of not be able to handle, it almost trips them up. They're not used to having somebody actually respond to them. And so that's what he does on social media quite often. And most of the tweets and the hate that he gets are really vile. And in terms of DMs and just overall replies to him and people who at him. And it's just the most hateful fucking shit. Well, somebody had posted a clip of, I forgot what it even was now, some clip of whatever he did on Dynamite or the pay-per-view or something. And a Twitter user by the name of Sandy criticized him and said something about his acting. Oh, his acting didn't get any better, or his acting still sucks. A shitty thing to say, but, not the N-word or anything, but just, kind of a critique. And this apparently is a person that has MS. So Ricochet tweeted back, "I'm glad you have MS." And that, of course, got fans very, very riled up. This went on for about a day, and then Ricochet tweeted an apology that read as follows. "I took my hatred for the IWC out on Sandy and inadvertently others who are affected by MS. She didn't deserve it, and for that, I sincerely apologize. Moving forward, I will do better." Which was cool. That was the right thing to do, because that was not a very cool tweet to send back. It was not a good idea. Probably a tweet that he wished he could take back right after he said it. But one thing that fans have to understand here is that Ricochet didn't go seek out Sandy and tweet her some ugly shit. Ricochet funnels and fields hundreds of nasty, horrific, vile, repugnant replies in DMs daily. He is hit with a swarm of it. And a lot of it is way worse than what Sandy said. And I think about our friend Ibu over at Selfmade. He on social media has frequently posted screenshots of his DMs, some of the worst ones. And there's always one word that's more common than any other word in these DMs. And I think you all know the word I'm talking about. Starts with an M. Starts with an N. Same thing with Ricochet. The racist shit that people tweet to him. The horrendous shit that they tweet about him, his wife, his family, his skin color, his flippy shit. I hope you break your neck doing your flips. All that stuff that he has to hear constantly. And then Sandy's comment comes in. And I think Ricochet's response to Sandy was more appropriate to one of these assholes that are, spewing actual real hate. Sandy was kind of being a dick. Sandy was a little bit critical, but didn't deserve the response that she got from Ricochet. That was wrong. That was an uncool thing to tweet. Ricochet apologized for it. That pretty much should be the end of the story, but it's not. Because then another part of the hate that Ricochet is getting is starting to land on Samantha Irvin, who Ricochet and Samantha Irvin both follow me on social media, and Samantha has deleted her Twitter because of getting death threats. She posted on Instagram that she was getting death threats. Death threats. It's so bizarre to me how you can pretend, it's all performative, by the way, pretend to be mad about a tweet that was a response to an insult, and then send death threats to that person's wife. This is where we're at. This is why fans are so pathetic, and it's so scary, and it's just wild, how much rage they can have, over virtually nothing, and not realizing what they're doing is far worse than the thing that they're criticizing. I'm sorry, death threats are way worse than telling somebody they got MS. You can call the cops for sending a death threat. Can't call the cops on what Ricochet said, And so it was an unadvised tweet, probably one that he shouldn't made, but he apologized for it. Then with the threats to Samantha, poor Samantha has now got to delete her social media. She's been dragged into this. And then you got a whole nother crew of fans who are mad because apparently not enough websites for them reported the tweet Ricochet made. They reported the apology, but not the tweet. This is what they're mad about. I'm like, well, first of all, Ricochet's tweet was a reply, and it was 3 words. The apology was a statement. A wrestler tweeting a reply to someone isn't news. A notable person dropping a statement, that is news. The news was the apology. It's not like they weren't saying what the apology was for. Many of these sites were posting screenshots of what Ricochet said. And then you have, you've got this contingent, this pool of these obsessed fans, and it's always AEW stuff. AEW is just such an instant trigger for them. Anything AEW related, they fly off the rails. So the Ricochet thing, nobody that was complaining about this. Oh, by the way, I should mention this as well. I was a guest over on Fightful's YouTube channel this Wednesday with Sean Rossap. I was a guest on The Hump. And Sean had told me before we went live, he's like, look, as always, I'm inviting these idiots to show up in the chat. I've given them the link. He goes, don't worry, nobody's going to. Nobody ever does. And lo and behold, one dude wants to pop in there, and Sean just basically wants to shut him down because they just decide shit's true in their head. They got all these stupid assumptions, all these ridiculous claims, all of them untrue, and they're just agitated and obsessed over nothing. And I'm sitting there, Sean invites the guy in, and of course, I'm not on my channel. I'm on somebody else's channel. Even though I'm a guest on that show, I'm not going to, I've got this fucking dude that looks like my George the Animal Steel LJN figure. I'm not going to, that I'm arguing with on this other channel. I got to watch my P's and Q's. I'm not going to tell him he looks like a fucking fat homeless fuck or anything like that. It's not my channel. So I'm kind of sitting there watching Sean going back and forth with this guy, but the more he's talking, the more I'm like, he is so perfect. He's such a perfect example of, they're all like that. They're all like that. They're going to believe what they want to believe and just say it. It does not matter. So of course Sean's always like, bring your evidence, bring your receipts. He had nothing. he had nothing other than what he wanted to believe. And what I tried to say is that what you want to be true and what is true are usually 2 different things. So you had all that going on, and so to be kind of in the middle of that was kind of funny because I don't really give a shit about that. I don't run a wrestling website. I've got a podcast. I've got a podcast on Saturday. We're going to talk all about the Ricochet shit, but this absolute obsession with, certain wrestling websites are biased towards AEW. Here's what they really mean by that. Wrestling fans who talk about wrestling, if they're not mean enough to AEW for them, that means they're biased. These are people with anti-AEW accounts, Tony Khan pics with a clown mask on them, a timeline for as long as the continental United States about obsessive Tony Khan and journalist and AEW stuff, all of which has a grand total of 3 likes, 26,000 posts, 3 total likes, all hate, all anger, all obsession, and it's just the weirdest fucking thing. And Ricochet gets it so badly. And I try to put myself in his shoes. Like, I'm the wrong messenger for this, but when I'm thinking about wrestlers who are repeatedly called the N-word by fans, I'm not the right person to speak on this. But I can easily see how if I was somebody who was absorbing that amount of hate on a daily basis, that I could let my emotions get out of me and, oh shit, I didn't grab a hold of that. I should have grabbed a hold of that comment and pulled it back, and Ricochet let one out that wasn't very nice. I could easily see being in that position, having a comment that gets away from me. We've all done it on social media. I have. I've sometimes, argued with a guy. I'm like, why am I giving this fucking invisible loser any of my time? And so I usually try to, learn better from that and not engage as much, unless I'm really dealing with somebody pathetic. And full disclosure, I don't really know what the rules are because I don't want to betray anybody's confidence, but I talked to Ricochet a couple of times this week, and a lot of that is what was kind of discussed. And when I see one of the points I made to him is just sitting in my chair, seeing the hate. I couldn't imagine having I couldn't imagine having a presence in wrestling like him or some other people that literally has to go through the most hateful, mean shit they can read and be told by somebody. You have to have unbelievably thick skin. You have to be able to know that your life is great and theirs sucks. Otherwise they wouldn't be doing this. You wouldn't have that fellow that was on with me and Sean who hasn't shut the fuck up about the thing for 4 days. He's got a YouTube channel with 24 subscribers on it. So this is the most attention he's ever gotten. So naturally, he's not going to stop. And they're all like that. They just come and they come. They're cockroaches. They're parasites. And they're everywhere. And Ricochet making a mistake and apologizing for it should have been the story. Nobody who was upset at Ricochet, tweeting him hate, rage, threatening his wife with death, nobody said a single thing. The dude we had with Sean on Wednesday, not one word about Sandy. Never once heard her name. You know why? Because nobody gives a shit about Sandy. Nobody gives a shit about the mean tweet. What they give a shit about is seeing a mean tweet that came from an AEW guy, and of course, they're all hiding behind rocks, ready to just pounce out and just jump on it and go absolutely ballistic. There are zero well-adjusted, successful adults in the world behaving this way. You might be successful, but you ain't well-adjusted. You might be well-adjusted, but not successful. Either way, you're not acting like this if you're a normal person. This is bonkers level of obsession here. With some of these guys. And with Ricochet, it should have been so simple. He's a troll online. He gives it back to the fans. I mean, MJF tweets in character. MJF absolutely would tell somebody he's happy they have MS. MJF gets this weird pass, because we expect it from him. I was on the Jericho Cruise a few years back, and he did something with a dude in a wheelchair. I forgot what he said to him or something, but it was fucking hilarious. And the guy played along. I think even got up on it. I forgot what the hell. I forgot the story. But MJF has routinely acted this way, making fun of people's handicaps and things like that, which even being in character, even a character as gnarly as MJF, sometimes I cringe. I'm like, ooh, that's a little bit, I don't know if I could say that to someone. I mean, and they'd have to be very, very insulting to me to where I'm like, I don't fucking care, but just in general, I would just never go out and seek somebody out and do that. And that's not what Ricochet was doing. And, you have people like, everybody, of course, is weighing in on this. Jim Cornette had a lot to say, and if there's one human in the world that should sit down on this issue, it's Jim Cornette, who has been fired for things that he said. Driving a cracker across Ethiopia. There's a video floating around of him sitting outside telling a story. He drops the N-word like 16 times, man. So like the things that Cornette has said in his life, he can't pile on here. He needs to sit down. Anybody who's ever ran their mouth to the point that it's gotten them in trouble, shut up. You got no voice in this. And I think the anger and the outrage towards Ricochet had nothing to do with the mean tweet. They saw a reason to pile on. He gave them, to be honest, a reason to pile on. He gave them that, and now they are. So the good thing about the IWC is that they are dumb as fuck. Laughably, jaw to the ground, tongue rolled out 5 feet, dumb. Just hilariously dumb. Stand back and point, look at how fucking dumb that guy is, dumb. So they will move on to their next raging obsession in no time. It takes them no time at all. They punch themselves out. You know, once they get latched onto something and then they tweet for days about it, they will burn themselves out. And they will find a new thing to pretend to be outraged about. You know, but all of the Ricochet stuff was so performative. And that's proven by every single person that calling a piece of shit and you're a jerk and you're fucking awful and all that. Not one word about Sandy. Nobody mentions Sandy, who was the person that he sent the mean tweet to. Not one mention of her. He apologized to her. I feel bad for her. I also don't think that she should have been criticizing people either, but the response did not match the critique that she offered. You know, I think her insult was here, Ricochet's was here. You know what I mean? So she was the one that I think most fans should have felt sympathy for, but nobody gave a fuck. And that just shows what kind of people they are inside. It's all performed. They don't mean it. They're not really offended that Ricochet sent out a mean tweet. They're excited. They're happy that they have a reason now to pile on someone that works for a company that for some reason in their head they have decided to hate because they're impressionable and stupid and they're followers and they're not leaders. And to me, that's where it all lied. You got a problem with Ricochet's tweet, no problem. A lot of people did. But you got to remember the important part here. Sandy, the woman with MS, you know, the woman that actually got her feelings hurt by this tweet. Nobody gives a shit about her. Nobody. Didn't hear anything about that at all. It was all about, oh, somebody didn't report the tweet. Who gives a fuck? I didn't need a wrestling website to report a tweet that I can see on my own. Like, there's a world. The sun is shining, guys. Get the fuck out there, man. You know, what the hell are you doing? So that was a small story that I think kind of turned into a shitstorm, and it didn't really need to. At the end of the day, I still support Ricochet. I like Ricochet. I like Samantha. They're wonderful people. Every time I've gotten a chance to speak to either one of them, they've been nothing but nice to me. And this is a situation where, like, okay, you made a mistake and you apologized. And just so we're clear, too, Sean Ross Sapp reported that it was not AEW that made Ricochet take down the apology. He did that on his own. I think Sean said maybe another wrestler or friend had talked to him and kind of said, hey, dude, you need to take that down. And then he did, and then he submitted the apology. But doesn't sound like he's in trouble with AEW management or anything like that. It's all good. The story definitely got inflated bigger than it should have been. And, you know, a lot of that was being amplified by this insanely crazy chunk of young adolescent or males, whatever it is, lifelong do-nothings. Lifelong do-nothings. Do nothing with their lives except just get mad and shit every day. You know, so I just feel like if you were in a good place in your life, you enjoyed where you lived, you had a good job, you had a good relationship, you know, you fucking showered, I don't think you'd be acting like this. That's my point. So anyway, all the best to Sandy. Hope she's doing okay after all of this, and all the best to Ricochet, and especially all the best to Samantha Irvin, who didn't deserve any of this stuff. And I'm really hoping to see her back on social media because I like interacting with her. So I hope she pops back up on Twitter there. But the whole situation is just, I guess, to describe it best would be unfortunate. Just an unfortunate thing that you have to talk about. It has to be a thing, and I would just wish it wasn't a thing. But I think when it comes to online hate, you know, delivering so much hate and doing it anonymously, you know, doing it behind a letter with a blue circle around it. That's your social media profile picture. You know, everybody, like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, guys. Like, seriously, but like in the last like couple of weeks, all my tweets have been blowing up. Like, I'm getting a lot more engagement on social media than usual, you know, and so some of the some of the critiques and whatnot, that come by way. Give a shit. It's I couldn't imagine having 1 million followers and getting, I don't know, 1,000 hateful DMs and tweets for days or every day from people. I don't even know how I would manage that. I probably would have to stay off social media. I don't think I could be on there that much if it was to that degree. And even some of the shit I'm getting back now, all I have to do is just look like every single person that barks something at me. Like I put on Twitter last night it's 2:30 in the morning, right? I'm typing away on my notes here and I'm watching SmackDown because I have to review SmackDown. And so I'm looking at SmackDown and I'm watching the Jelly Roll segment, and he says that thing to Kit Wilson, I put my belly fat on your mom or whatever. I'm like, goddamn. And I tweet out, that is a worse visual than the syringe, which I just think is a really just funny random sentence to type at 2:30 in the morning. Oh my God. The faceless little bitches that get all up in arms, of course they take that tribally. I'm like, is anybody capable of having fun? But whenever you look at these people that get so mad, there's never a face and there's never a name and there's never any followers, and it's just a bunch of bullshit. These people are invisible. They're not real people, So I'm kind of having a new rule on social media. If you ain't got a face, I ain't talking to you. I mean, unless I know you, like I follow you already and we interact and I know you're not a freak. But, when it comes to these like little anger boys tweeting all these insults, just pussy tweeting behind nothing, behind an anonymous picture, go fuck yourself. You don't deserve the attention. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the whole Ricochet thing and whatnot. And hopefully he'll be back on AEW TV. I thought the match with Jack Perry would wind up being one-on-one, but he dropped that belt in a battle royal, so we'll have to see if he returns to TV. Maybe they kept him off TV this week to cool everything off, and he'll be back. We will see. But at the end of the day, all the best to Ricochet, Samantha, and Sandy. All the best to you both. All right, let's talk about this story. This is wild. My God. Now, we've been kind of eyeballing the big Ted DiBiase Jr. Trial for a while. He's been a part of that major Mississippi welfare fraud scandal that's been ongoing that involves names like his brother Brett and Brett Favre, who is named in this as well, although I don't think he was ever charged. So we've been watching the story a little bit, and we know the trial has been getting close to its completion. And based on everything that I've heard and read and seen about this trial over the past year or so, or whatever it's been, looks unbelievably damning to Ted DiBiase Jr. This is some serious evidence here, and I was just under the assumption that this guy is going to go away for the rest of his life. He was acquitted. I believe, on what, Thursday? Absolutely nuts. So DiBiase Jr., the son of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, 1/3 of Legacy. The other 2/3 are going to be main eventing WrestleMania this year, by the way. The other guy has been in the middle of this fraud case, and DiBiase Jr. was charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and to commit theft concerning programs receiving federal funds, 6 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of theft concerning programs receiving federal funds, and 4 counts of money laundering. Prosecutors alleged that DiBiase misused millions of dollars in federal funds that were intended for needy and low-income families in Mississippi. They said he used sham contracts to obtain the money for services that were never provided. The feds argued that he used the money to purchase a $1.4 million home, a $55,000 pontoon boat, a $34,000 tractor, and a $40,000 truck, along with a trip to Disney World. It all connects back to the Mississippi welfare fraud case, which alleges the misuse of over $100 million in temporary assistance for needy families' funds. Boy, all them hillbilly MAGA fucks are all riled up about Minnesota. Take a look at this shit, man. DiBiase was the only defendant wrapped up in the embezzlement scheme who did not accept a plea deal, instead opting for a jury trial, which turned out to be the right choice, as he was acquitted. Now, his brother Brett pled guilty to one count of using false statements in Hinds County Circuit Court, and he's still awaiting sentencing, but he's not facing what DiBiase was facing, which would have been, if he was found guilty of everything and sentenced to the max, he would have been looking at 185 years in federal prison his whole life. He probably would have gotten away. He probably would have gotten a lighter sentence, 45 years. It still would have put him in there until he died. But he was facing life behind bars. And again, all I know is what he was charged with. How he was acquitted, I have no idea. Nobody's accusing Mississippi to be the smartest state in the world. So you could very well have a lot of dumb motherfuckers on that jury. But when there's the specifics, used money to purchase a $1.4 million home, truck, pontoon boat, tractor, Disney World, 6 counts of wire fraud, and 4 counts of money laundering. Those aren't just fabricated bullshit. Was somebody framing him for all of this? I doubt it. So when you read all this stuff, I'm like, how the hell did the prosecutors present this evidence to a jury and they found him not guilty of this? Seems like he was guilty. If there's receipts and they show the sketchy bank shit and he's using welfare money for his personal use, I think DiBiase was claiming that he provided all of the services, but he was still using all this money to buy all this shit. So, for him to be acquitted or to be found not guilty, there would have to be some proof that he did not use that money for these things. And it felt like it was ironclad to me. It felt like they had him dead to rights and he was fucked 6 ways to Sunday. But he is now acquitted. Now, if he was wrongfully accused, then I am thrilled for him. There's nothing more uncomfortable than hearing about people spending their lives in jail for crimes they didn't commit. So I certainly wouldn't want that. But I think we're all smarter than that, and this does not seem to be the case here. This seems like he got away with this, and that's wild. That's wild. So anyway, Ted DiBiase Jr., is now a free man. He will not be going to jail, and it's pretty amazing how one little phone call from Randy Orton on Monday Night Raw can wield a lot of power. My God. Jesus. So anyway, we'll see if Ted DiBiase Jr. shows up at WrestleMania to maybe help Cody Rhodes or Randy Orton defeat the other, but wild stuff there as DiBiase Jr. escapes, and sounds like was the right call to opt for a trial by jury because he got set free. Fucking crazy, man. All right. Well, let's wrap up the news with a very sad death to report. This is kind of a big one here. Dennis Condrey, founding member of the Midnight Express, passed away Friday at age 74. Now, he formed, the Midnight Express was kind of like a conglomeration of a lot of talent, but around 1983, he formed the goated version, the most well-known version of the Midnight Express with Bobby Eaton and Jim Cornette, who had already been, in the mix there. And they went by Loverboy Dennis and beautiful Bobby Eaton, and they were the Midnight Express. And they were arguably one of the best tag teams of the 1980s. They had an amazing run, great feud with the Rock and Roll Express, and are arguably one of the greatest tag teams of all time. And that really holds up when you go back and watch their work, because they were, especially Dennis Condrey, he was wildly underrated. Very nondescript looking, kind of like Bobby Eaton was. I always loved the Midnight Express's nickname because there's nothing lover boyish or beautiful about Dennis or Bobby. They're a couple of rough little Southern boys looking, but they were great. They were complete pro wrestlers in every sense of the word. Like when it came to in-ring, when it came to execution, when it came to psychology, specifically, heel psychology, they were good at comedy. They could make baby faces look strong as ever loving hell, and Cornette's ability to cut promos just made them the absolute perfect package. When I think of Southern wrestling, I think of those two, and I think of Dusty Rhodes. I think of Bobby and Dennis and Dusty. To me, they epitomize what, if you just envision a Southern wrestler in your head, they do. And those years of the Midnight and Rock and Roll Express feud is some of the best Southern wrestling you will ever find, even to this day. Those matches hold up because those guys could, but I mean, Bobby Eaton was like no other, but Dennis Condrey, I feel like, also deserves a lot of the same credit. You know, Bobby Eaton, what I love so much about his work is his shit not only holds up, it gets better. When you watch clips and you watch matches of Bobby Eaton, I knew at the time watching Bobby Eaton wrestle that he was a good wrestler. I didn't understand why until I was an adult. And just so many of the little things that he does that fans don't get or take for granted or don't realize that actually gets better with age. These things that you recognize in the style from back then and how good and well-rounded of a performer that Bobby Eaton was, that I think will go down as just one of the best just pro wrestlers in terms of understanding what to do. And there it was Bobby Eaton. Condrey was no slouch either. I mean, this guy, Dennis Condrey, he would fuck an enhancement talent up. He absolutely would. He was, you know, rough and tumble, but he was also just really good at everything he did as a heel and making baby faces look good, and he would put you to the test. And him and Bobby Eaton both were country. My God, they were about as country as you can get, but that is their, that's their appeal. They were Southern wrestlers through and through, you know, to the bone. And with Condrey, you know, he would hang around, I guess, to like 87, and then he would be replaced in the Midnight Express by Stan Lane. And Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton was also a great tag team as well, but the original, this version of the Midnight Express is largely considered the best, and the goated Midnight Express versions, which would have, you know, other members as well, and they would even resurrect it in the 90s, right? With Bodacious Bart or whatever, and Bombastic Bob, or maybe it was Bombastic Bart. Who was Bombastic? Which one was Bombastic? I don't know. But anyway, you know, I'm honestly thinking of Jim Cornette today. You know, Cornette, very close to Dennis, and he lost Bobby a couple of years ago, and I'm sure that this is a tough loss for him. But Condrey was 74. And one recommendation I would make is just to go back and watch some of those matches. If you can find some Dennis Condrey singles matches, great. He also had tag teams with David Schultz and some others. But if you can just watch Midnight Express matches. Watch, as good as Bobby Eaton was, you know, we always watch Bobby in a match. Just watch a couple matches, and this time watch Dennis. Watch them both. But Dennis was tremendous, and a lot of that Southern style of wrestling, specifically from the Midnight Express, your Bobby Eatons, your Dennis Condreys, your guys like that. Barry Windham was like that too. Cowboy Bob Orton also comes to mind. They would do things that you wouldn't realize at the time were anything. But now, you know, now when you look back, I'm like, oh man, I wish some of today's stars had that ring presence or that psychology to them, and would do some of the little things that would go like a long way. You know, just there was a clip floating around just the other day of Bobby Eaton. I think it was Steve Austin. It was Austin and Eaton against maybe Sting and someone else. Sting comes in for like a flying splash, and Bobby Eaton from the other side of the apron runs, and he just spears his own tag team partner, Steve Austin, out of the way, and Sting just flies over the top rope. You know, just little things like that. His timing, his execution, how everything was so fucking perfect. And they were entertaining, because when you're in the ring wrestling, you're not just wrestling, you're doing entertaining shit too. They would play up their heel personas to the crowd. They were very good at the comedy. They were very good at selling. They were very good at the psychology. They knew exactly what to do to make the teams they were working with look good. And so much of the 80s, to me, or they embodied so much of, you know, 80s wrestling and tag team wrestling in the 80s. Even though I was a WWE guy, grew up with WWE primarily, I still rank my top 3 favorite tag teams ever as the Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs, and Demolition. Midnight Express, you know, I'm not even sure is in my top 10 because I didn't watch them until I became, you know, a little bit older. When I was a kid, it was mostly magazines until I got down to the Carolinas, saw them a little bit, but that was a Stan Lane version. So my experiences with Condrey as a kid was only magazines until I got older into the tape trading and got to see a lot more of his work. Bobby Eaton, luckily, though, wasn't like that. I always got to see Bobby Eaton on TV. So Condrey is a big loss. Absolute legend. And condolences to his family. Wrestling lost one of its best. My God. Rest in peace, Dennis Condrey. Midnight Express. What a fucking team. They're going to go down as One of the greats. I mean, some fans, many fans, I shouldn't even say some, many fans rank the Midnight Express as the greatest tag team of all time. I cannot argue that. It's like fans who rank Ric Flair as the greatest of all time. I personally don't, but I certainly can't argue with anybody who has that opinion because you got a hell of a lot of, hell of a lot to back that up. So, rest in peace, Dennis Condrey. Sad news. All right, let's see here. Let's move on to last night's SmackDown, last night's 3-hour SmackDown. This was an okay show, but 3 hours I think is just too much. I did like how Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu basically brawled all throughout the show. So this whole thing, it was, what's that? Is that Peter Griffin and the chicken fucking fight type of thing? And then years ago on Monday Night Raw, back in like 97, Austin and Brett had a big show encompassing angle where Austin and Brett were fighting, and that was when Austin kicked Brett's ass and fucked his leg up, and they put him in the ambulance, and Austin was behind the wheel. That whole thing. This kind of reminded me of that a little bit because Drew McIntyre is obviously pissed off because of, he's still pissed at Jacob Fatu for costing him the title and costing him his match at WrestleMania. So the show opens with Jelly Roll showing up in like an SUV, but a bunch of security and Nick Aldis blow right past them because they are summoned to go deal with some commotion in the parking lot, and the commotion is Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu beating the shit out of each other on the smashed windshield of a car. And Jacob Fatu, he's wearing like a red hoodie and red pants, and he's busted open. And Drew separates himself. He storms to the ring, gets on the mic, and he's just vowing to kill anybody who gets in his way because he was set to go to WrestleMania to be in the main event, and Jacob took it away from him. So all this comes out, yelling at Drew McIntyre to get out of the ring. That's when Fatu returns, gets back in the ring. The brawl resumes all on the outside of the ring, and McIntyre gets put on the table, and Jacob Fatu splashes him like off the barricade through the table, and that would just be the beginning of the issue between those two guys all night long. We also had the tag team titles on the line. The MFTs were defending against new number one contenders, R-Truth and Damian Priest. And because we're in the middle of this absolutely stupid lantern story, I just thought between all the members of the MFTs and possibly even the Wyatts coming out, that this match would probably just end in a DQ or something, but it didn't. We got an AA from Truth onto, I forget who he hit, maybe, I think Cobb, for the win, and no, it might have been Tama. Either way, Damian Priest and R-Truth actually win the tag team titles last night. Now, the Wyatts came out because there's other MFTs guys out there. Tala's out there, Solo is out there, and you had the MFTs coming out to... Where'd my notes go? Yeah, they came out to take out the rest of the MFTs, allowing R-Truth and Priest to take out the two in the ring, and they won the tag team championships. I don't know what this means. I loved it. They've got a lot of history from back in the Judgment Day when Priest didn't really like Truth, and I think it led to some issues between the two. Now there's a really good chance they could go into WrestleMania as tag team champions, and I hope that they do. So the MFTs, thankfully, are no longer the WWE Tag Team Champions. The Wyatts, of course, are still a part of this. And then later on, we cut backstage, and Solo is all pissed off about his boys losing the tag titles. Now the WrestleMania spots are probably not going to happen. And Tama Tonga kind of argues with him a little bit and tells him, dude, why don't you just give the lantern back? Give the lantern back to the Wyatts. They're the reason that we lost. They came out here, and if we didn't have this damn lantern, they might not have targeted us. So why don't you just give it back? Solo refuses, and Tama tells him that he's starting to remind him a lot of Roman Reigns. So that was kind of a funny line there. You're starting to remind me, or you're starting to sound like Roman, I think is what he said. And then right when he says that, we got this segment bleeding into more of Fatu and Drew stuff as Fatu and Drew come in for more brawling, and they're chased out by the security, so that is still ongoing. Then we go backstage to see Johnny Gargano. He's still depressed. He's back there planking. And that's when Danhausen shows up. And Candace asks Danhausen to uncurse Johnny Gargano. He said he'll do it for $20 human cash money, which Candace gives it to him. And then he says, thanks. And he leaves and doesn't uncurse poor Johnny. Later on, he's back to do more shit with The Miz and a falling ladder, which is kind of funny. And Danhausen, I like them a lot. These segments are very funny to me. They're entertaining, and they're a nice little comedy bit in between these matches. He's perfect for that. And so far, I've loved every segment Danhausen has been in since the debut. I think he's really bounced back strong here. They're using him in just the right amount of time, or for the right amount of time. Right now, both on Raw and SmackDown. I don't know if he's going to be a floater or if he's eventually going to kind of be stationed on one show. We will see. But the Danhausen stuff is still funny. And Gargano is still depressed. We will see what is left for him in WWE. I don't know what his contract situation is. Obviously, the depression story is a story. It's an angle. But maybe in real life, he might be thinking the same thing. I don't really know what's left for Johnny Gargano to do on the main roster without Tommaso Ciampa. He's not like, in NXT, I felt like he was one of Triple H's golden boys. Now Triple H has got so much more going on. He's not really dedicating much to Gargano, but he is on TV. He has been involved in this planking depression storyline for a few weeks now, so at least that's something, and it might even translate into him forming a tag team with Alex Shelley, because after that, the Motor City Machine Guns went to the ring to face Fraxium. And Candice LeRae shows up, and she punches Nathan Frazier, allowing Chris Sabin to roll him up for the win. Sabin did not see her do that. Shelley did. And Shelley seemed to be okay with it. Sabin doesn't know about it, so maybe what they're setting up here is for Johnny Gargano to replace Chris Sabin. But then what do you do with Chris Sabin? I don't know. They don't have a trios title, so can't put the three of them together. But it feels like maybe this is setting up some kind of a split and Gargano getting involved in the Machine Guns business somehow, I guess. I don't really know. After that, it was top of the hour, so it's time for the Randy Orton promo. Now, we got very little last night revealed about who Randy Orton was speaking to on the phone. Of course, on Monday night, we talked a lot about it. He was talking to someone on the phone when he was supposed to do an interview with Michael Cole, and he told Michael Cole that he spoke to somebody recently who had a brain, and that person reminded him who he is, or whatever the fuck it was. But basically, it sounds like he's been on the phone with somebody, and this is going to be something that's going to play into the match with Cody Rhodes. On SmackDown last night, we didn't hear too much from him about who was on the other line, but he did offer his explanation. He came to the ring, he sat in a chair, and he was supposed to give us his explanation for why he did what he did to Cody Rhodes, but I think we already knew that. And he basically reiterated kind of what he said last week. He said that if it was Drew McIntyre, no problem. He could be who he needed to be to win the title at WrestleMania if he was facing Drew McIntyre. But he doesn't know if he can do that with Cody Rhodes because he loves Cody as a brother, and he still does. But he says Cody took the burden off of him last week when he told him to be the Viper and to listen to the voices in your head. And Randy, who's just jacked, and his veins are bulging, and he's red, and he's about to explode, and he's just, he basically says the voices in his head tell him that he's going to beat Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania with the RKO, and sometimes the voices in his head, he can't control what they make him do. So basically, he's feeling a little bit better about having to do this now since he's essentially gotten Cody's blessing to hear the voices and to be the Viper. So we got the explanation sort of, that we needed, but we already knew this based on what we saw last week, and we didn't really get anything furthered with the phone call. And of course, lots of speculation on who could be on the other end of that line. Anyone from his dad, Cowboy Bob, which wouldn't make much sense to me. Cowboy Bob's very old. To The Rock, to Shane McMahon even has been brought up. And one of the ideas that I like is maybe he's talking to either Ethan Page or Ricky Saints, or maybe he's talking to Regal, because they just formed the Birthright faction in NXT with, I think, Charlie Dempsey, his son, being one of the last people to join. I think Pillman Jr.'s in there, and who the fuck else is in there? So you got this Birthright. We got this Birthright faction in NXT. Could they perhaps assist Randy Orton? Is he setting up? Because I thought maybe if you're going to turn Cody heel down the line, he'd be the one with a faction. But Randy Orton could be setting up some help at WrestleMania for them to be doing this phone call thing. Makes you think that it's got to be factored into the main event somehow of WrestleMania. And I'm guessing it doesn't have to be at WrestleMania. It could be on the go home. It could be prior to that. But I'm kind of hoping that if we get the reveal of who was on the other end of the phone, it happens at WrestleMania. That's what I think. And I also think there could be a big swerve, possible for Roman Reigns and CM Punk as well. But we didn't get any indication yet on who was on the other end of the phone from Randy Orton last night. We did have a match between Aleister Black and Sami Zayn. Sami and Trick, I think, had an interaction backstage where Trick told him, hey, I'm going to come out and watch your match later on tonight. And Trick and Sami, during the match, they kind of get into it a little bit there. And Sami winds up attacking Trick on the outside of the ring, letting his own emotions get the best of him. He gets in the ring, and he's immediately nailed with a sick-ass black mass. He goes down like a ton of bricks, and you kind of read lips. Black was kind of he just shook his head. He goes, Sami. And he gets down, and he covers him and pins him. I think it's hilarious that not hilarious, it's kind of sad and fucked up. They not canned, I shouldn't say that either. That's not true either. But they let Cross and Scarlett go, not renewing their contracts, only just to replace the exact same thing they're doing with Aleister Black and Zelina Vega. So Black and Sami went down there. He feels like he's cooled off. Sami feels a bit cold. I don't know what this is going to lead to because fans and every wrestler that he's even interacting with backstage is kind of getting annoyed with him. So this has got to be leading somewhere because at some point you can't continue this shit for a year and then have him win the Rumble next year. Like, you got to get away from this at some point. But I guess Aleister's thing is, Sami Zayn is his own worst enemy. And he proved it last night by Sami not being able to keep his cool, got too preoccupied with Trick, and it cost him a big match on television. So that's the story they're telling there. This next one was kind of interesting. We get yet another in-ring promo between Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley. And, of course, the two of them had a little bit of a social media beef a few weeks back that is not really translated to TV yet. And so now they are both in the ring. Ripley out there looking amazing. Jade, I don't know what was going on, but this was a big, a Jesse Ventura, boa, or maybe those neck pillows you can get on the plane. Picture that, but this big, And so she had one of those on there. So they're in the ring, jaw-jacking, and Rhea is basically, look, no more talk. Let's do it. Hit me. Come on, hit me. And, of course, Jade replies with the ever common, we're going to do it on my time, not your time. That shit's so fucking played out. So at first I'm like, oh my God, is this all we're going to get? Jade gets out of the ring to retreat, and then she is joined in the aisleway by Michin and B-Fab, two women that she's kind of been feuding with. And one of them's got a kendo stick. I think it's Michin. So they start kind of approaching Jade Cargill in a threatening way. And then Jade Cargill just looks at the two of them and smiles, and they dive in the ring and attack Rhea Ripley. So on one hand, maybe this is weird because Jade was just feuding with these two women. But on the other hand, I like this because it gives Michin and B-Fab now something to do. And Jade, she kind of had that in AEW, didn't she? She had the baddies. How many women were there with her? I feel like it was 2 or 3. She had a little entourage with her. That's the perfect thing for her to do in WWE. They should do the same thing. And you got Michin and B-Fab, both of which I like, especially Michin, who's gotten herself in just amazing shape over the last couple of years. Love the both of them, so I'm glad that this now gives them something to do, and maybe they're going to form a name for this little crew. And now Jade has seemingly got a lot of backup for WrestleMania. We'll have to see if maybe Io Sky makes her presence known in that match, especially if Rhea is basically against a 3-1 disadvantage here. Maybe Io comes out to help even the odds or something, or maybe cost Rhea the match accidentally that leads to their return. I don't know. Now that Jade has got some backup, I'm not completely convinced that Rhea Ripley is going to win the title at WrestleMania, even though I still think she is. I feel like Triple H, knowing him the way we know him, faced with this decision, Jade or Rhea, who to put over. Jade's held the title now. When did she win it? Jade's had the belt for a while now. I feel like Jade's going to drop it. But if they want her to have more of a run, then they could keep it on her. Because if this is going to be more of a long-term alliance here with Michin, BFAB, and Jade, I don't know if you necessarily want her to drop the title at WrestleMania, because then what's the point of building that unit just for her to drop the title? They should protect her and protect her title run for a little while longer. So if Rhea is the plan to win the title at WrestleMania, I'm not so sure if the alliance between Jade and those two is going to be a terribly long one. Best match on the night. Best match of the week. The weekdays of the days of the week, Monday through Friday. Best match easily. Carmelo Hayes successfully defending his United States title last night against Dragunov. Melo's been trying to give Dragunov a match. Dragunov finally accepts, and it was a great one. That is the highlight of SmackDown for me on a show that had a good chunk of nothing on it. That match was all fun, and I'm hoping that both men find their way into WrestleMania. Kind of feel like it's going to be a multi-man thing for Melo. I feel like the same thing could happen for the IC. But Melo and Dragunov being inside of a wrestling ring on one of the nights of WrestleMania better be a thing that happens, because that match was so good. Backstage, we've got Randy Orton talking to Matt Cardona, who basically, we know is great friends with Cody Rhodes, and he kind of asked Randy, what were you thinking last week? Randy's already been out to the ring to explain this, and Randy, so funny, Randy Orton calls Matt Cardona a mark-ass stooge and an indie nerd, and then he nails him, tells him to stay out of his business, even makes fun of him for playing with action figures. That was kind of funny. Then later on, Jelly Roll also tries to talk sense to Randy Orton, and Randy, is appreciative, but telling Jelly that he's got to do what he's got to do here. So Randy is still not full-blown into a heel. He's still interacting with people. He's still getting a very nice reaction from the audience because they don't want to boo him. And now with Jelly Roll and this little conversation here, and of course Jelly Roll was out there, the previous week when Cody was laid out. And I'm wondering if, remember when Austin turned heel? Of course you do. At WrestleMania 17. And the fans, it was hard for them to accept that at first. And one of the things that WWE did was have Steve Austin beat up Jim Ross in Oklahoma on like a SmackDown. He bloodied up Jim Ross and like beat him to hell, right? Maybe they're going to do the same thing with Jelly Roll. Maybe this is setting up Randy Orton leading up to WrestleMania, absolutely destroying Jelly Roll. But Jelly Roll's going to have his own match probably, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But even if Randy did that, I think the fans actually might like him beating up Jelly Roll. But it feels like maybe that's what they were teasing there with Jelly, because Jelly's got his own issue. He was in the ring later on, or after this, with Kit Wilson for some slam poetry. So Wilson has a little sheet of paper he's got all his poems on, and his mentions something about Jelly Roll not being able to see his little Willie because he was a very, very large man, and he's not anymore. He lost like 300 pounds. He lost a Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was weighing 303 pounds. He lost a Hulk Hogan. He shed a Hogan from his body. So after Kit reads some poetry about Jelly Roll not being able to see his little Willie, Jelly Roll says, "Your mom sees it for me. She could have told you that because I put my fat on her back." Basically describes lifting up all the skin left over from the weight he lost and laying it across the back of Kit Wilson's mom. That's nice, isn't it? Isn't that nice? It's so nice. Let's all now take a minute together to visualize that. Hold up. Oh, I almost barfed. Yeah, it's worse than the syringe. I'm sorry. Think about it. Think about what I just said. Now think about the syringe. Yeah, Jelly Roll's worse by like 10 miles. Holy shit. So yeah, that was nice. That was so nice. Crowd got a kick out of that. And a lot of people at home did too. Were like, Jelly? Loved it. So that was a very, very nice moment. Can't say enough good things about how warm my heart felt when Jelly Roll said he's going to take his big fat belly and lay it across the body of Kit Wilson's mom. That is what wrestling is all about. That's family entertainment. That's wholesome. That's wholesome. What was not so wholesome is possibly the worst fucking tag team wrestling match I've ever seen between the Bellas and the Irresistible Force. Irresistible Force putting their belts on the line, Nia Jax and Lash Legend against the Bellas. Now, we can already tell that there's going to be some multi-team thing here at WrestleMania. Basically, from the minute that the Bellas came back in the ring on Raw and announced that they're going to be targeting the tag team titles, I said, what's going to happen is they are going to win those tag team titles at WrestleMania in a multi-team match. Because the team that were champions at the time was Ripley and Io Sky. They ain't beating them. The team that beat Ripley and Io Sky was Lash and Nia. They ain't beating them. But somehow, after not having a tag team match together in something like 8 years or 7 years, whatever it is, it's many, many years, they get a tag team title shot on SmackDown. Charlotte and Alexa Bliss were at ringside for this, and this thing was awful. 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 Jesus, God, no. Think of that Steve Carell Office meme. No, Jesus, no. I think when, I forgot his name, when the guy comes back, the human resources guy comes back. No, God, no. It was wretched. It was the worst fucking thing I've ever seen. It ends in a no contest. After Charlotte and Alexa cause problems out there and everybody fights and the referee calls for the bell. Absolutely horrific match. And I think we can all tell that this is leading to probably a 4-way match involving the Bellas, the Irresistible Force, Charlotte and Alexa, and either Bayley and Lyra or the Kabukis. So that's 5 teams there that I think are all going to be in the mix, but I kind of thought it would be a 4 corners match, be a 8-woman tag. And if that's the case, I'd rather have Bayley and Lyra get in there and have the Kabukis split and wrestle one-on-one at WrestleMania would be my hope. Or maybe you get Asuka, Kairi, and Io Sky in a triple threat. That would be fine. So I'd almost leave the Kabukis out of this at this point because they don't deserve to be involved with such garbage. My God. But what's probably going to happen is the Bellas are going to win the tag team titles. And they're going to do it in the 4-way. One of them will probably pin Alexa Bliss or something, and they will win. Or Lyra or whatever. And they will have a run with the tag belts, and that is fine. That is fine. But that match was awful last night. So if the Bellas are going to be given the tag team titles, that's fine. Just make it short, please. Please, because that match was bad. And then after that, we get Randy Orton. After his interaction with Matt Cardona, he's back out in the ring again. He brings him out there, apologizes for making, action figures are cool. They're cool now, according to Orton. And gives Cardona a hug. And the whole time you're watching this, you're like, now, why would Cardona be stupid enough to believe anything Randy Orton's telling him here? And to go as far as hug Randy Orton, and then you knew as soon as it was over, Cardona was going to get killed, and he did. He got kicked right in the penis. Then he got RKO'd. Then Randy starts tearing his shirt off of him and drags him out to the ring, or drags him outside the ring. Officials run out there but do nothing. There's so many officials, but they're not even stopping Orton. Orton takes Cardona out to the announce table, starts battering him. Then he takes Cardona inside the ring and winds up Pillmaning Cardona's arm in the chair. So he completely took out Cardona. And that's why I think the same fate could be in the future of Jelly Roll if he does get in Randy Orton's face again leading up to WrestleMania. But looks like the direction is going to be for Kit Wilson and Jelly Roll to have some sort of a tag team match at WrestleMania. And we did hear the rumors of Jelly Roll teaming up with Royce Keys, who we still have not seen on main roster TV. He's worked a couple main event matches and some dark match stuff. But if they're going to get him in there as a partner for Jelly Roll, they better get on that. So we will see. Maybe in a couple of weeks. You could even do it this way. You could even have Randy Orton beat up Jelly Roll, just like I suggested, and Royce Keys run out to kind of back Randy off. And maybe Randy just kind of backs up. Just a little tease for the future, between the two. And since Royce Keys came out and saved Jelly Roll from further damage, from possibly ending his career or ending his life at the hands of Randy Orton, Miz and Kit Wilson, start making fun of Jelly for getting attacked, and then Jelly's like, hey, I got a friend. He helped me. We'll see you guys at WrestleMania. Maybe that's how it's going to do. Maybe that's how it's going to go. So anyway, after Orton destroys Cardona, I like this. He's being kind of led away from the ring, and that's when you can see on the Tron that in the back, outside again, Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre are still going at it, so all the security and all this now leave the ring area to flee to the back to go find out what's going on, and I don't know what the hell this thing is. It was a thing. Just a big old thing. Y'all have seen things before, right? Big old things. It's just a big old thing. They climbed it. They climbed the thing. It's got like a railing on it. It almost looks like it was square, not round. It's like one of those things you just, like you'd see in like on a farm, you fill with grain or whatever. It's like one of those. And so they're on this little terrace here of this thing, fighting, and they both fall off backwards, seemingly to their death. Now, the security in Nick Aldis is viewing all this from far away. There's like a fence in them, but you can't even see the ground where they fall. There's a fence blocking it, but you can see them on top of this thing, and then they fall backwards off of it. So they've been annihilated here. Probably fell to their deaths, although I think this is just going to probably lead to whatever stipulation we're going to get at WrestleMania, because at this point, the match between Jacob and Drew McIntyre, I do not believe has been made official yet for WrestleMania, but we know that's the match we're going to get. You can't have a show-long running brawl like this just to put these guys in the ring with standard rules. So are we looking at a Hell in the Cell here? Or are we looking at a different type of stipulation match? Either way, we're looking at a Hell in the Cell, a steel cage, a Falls Count Anywhere, a last man standing, a no holds barred. What other, any other description of the same match you can give, that's got to be what we're looking at for WrestleMania. You can't just be counted out or disqualified in a match between these two guys because there's too much hatred and whatnot. So that was kind of fun. So I guess the brawl, I liked the long brawl that concluded at the end of the show. I liked some of the stuff Randy Orton was doing with Jelly Roll, with Matt Cardona. Even though we didn't get any more clues about who's on the other end of the phone, I still liked it. But the rest of SmackDown, a whole lot of nothing. You almost forget all about the tag team title win. So the show was just, okay last night. Was what it was. And now we are one step closer to WrestleMania. Now, like I said, we will be here this Monday night for a Raw review. This past week, we did see the Roman and Punk promo that was probably the weakest segment that the two have done so far, so hopefully they bounce back. We were all expecting Roman Reigns to deliver a line about CM Punk's dog Larry that never came, so maybe that's coming up later in another segment. And what we did see was Punk kind of knocking Roman down, and then Roman just laughed. And, I'm hoping things get ramped up here. What I'm hoping happens is that all of this stuff results in a Bloodline Rules match at WrestleMania between Punk and Roman, and I think it would be fun if the Bloodline Rules match was actually a swerve to benefit Punk more than Roman, and maybe Punk gets in the ear of the Usos and they actually help him win rather than help Roman win. We will see. Also, this week on Raw, hopefully we will learn what the plans are, or at least get some clues as to what the plans might be for Gunther, because he was kept off TV last week. I think you got to bring him back on Monday for sure. So hopefully we will see what plans they have for that. And then I think we also have the tag team match. It's non-title, I believe, Usos versus Logan Paul and Austin Theory. Before we get into the chat here and answer some questions, I know you guys have been sending your supers and whatnot. We will answer all of them. And we will get to... We will answer all those in just a minute, and I thank you guys for being here again. If anybody hasn't hit the thumbs up button for me and feels like doing it, now would be a good time. Also, later on tonight, I will have this podcast pushed out to the podcast feed. It'll happen probably about 5 or 6 hours-ish after I sign off here. Keep a lookout for that tonight. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite this week. This show was off. It had an off feel to it, and I was really excited about this one too because Revolution was crazy, and I just expected more, I guess, out of this Dynamite. We had things happen, but there was like a weird vibe about it. I think the crowd was kind of dead, And Tony Khan also kind of talked it up a little bit, like it was going to be a wild night on Wednesday, and it really wasn't that wild. It was had some interesting spots, but it was maybe not one of their best shows, and it's a shame because they pulled like 730,000 in the ratings. They did a great number for Dynamite, and I wish they would have kind of had a better show in place for the fans that were tuning in, like they did a couple of weeks ago. There was 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had a couple of Dynamites in a row there that were fantastic. So I kind of wish we got one of those quality shows as opposed to the one we got here, but they still did a really good number for Dynamite. That's encouraging. Show opened up with a returning Will Ospreay. Ospreay is back, and he's in the ring, taking on Blake Christian. Fun match. Just good to see Ospreay in there, moving around, mixing it up. Looks like he didn't have surgery at all. He seems to be completely to top speed, and he works an insane style anyway. So I think we were all curious, coming back from an injury that's serious like that, if that's going to affect how he is in the ring. Didn't seem to at all. And he looked great in there. Really happy to have Will Ospreay back. He's going to be a world champion this year, 100%. And after that, he called out Jon Moxley. Now, I kind of like this because Moxley's been playing the role of a babyface on TV lately, but of course, he was responsible for, or one of the people responsible for Ospreay's injury to begin with. So Ospreay has really targeted Moxley and calls him out after his win over Blake Christian. Calls out Moxley, wants him, says that he's going to break Moxley's neck with his bare hands. So out comes Moxley. He's kind of sauntering through the crowd like he always does, Death Rider style. Ospreay hops the barricade and just goes after him in the crowd. Winds up getting Moxley in the ring. Goes for the Tiger Driver 91, but Pac shows up and saves Moxley from what would have been a certain broken neck there. So Ospreay almost made good on his promise, and I like that. I like it's weird to have, somebody that's kind of been presenting themselves as a babyface in a heel faction now going up against another babyface, but I'm glad that Ospreay's character doesn't care if Moxley's a babyface or not. Ospreay's character remembers what was done to him. So the person that he wants revenge against is Jon Moxley. We just have to wait now and see when they are going to book that match. I would assume it's going to be Dynasty, but you got Moxley's a Continental Champion. And I don't even know if we need Will Ospreay winning the Continental title. So the title might not be on the line, or maybe Moxley drops it ahead of that. I don't know. But it feels like Ospreay versus Moxley is going to have to be the plan for Dynasty, right? So since Moxley was already out there, they just went into the next match. Moxley and Yuta defeated Juice Robinson and Ace Austin. And like I said, if we find out that there is a reason to congratulate Juice, we will be the first to do it here on the channel once we get any confirmation on that. My God, the coffin match. Jesus Christ. So Darby Allin was scheduled to face Gabe Kidd in a coffin match on Dynamite. This was one I actually was looking forward to, but they kicked things off outside in the street in broad daylight. Darby breaks some laws. First of all, I guess he chloroforms Gabe Kidd and throws him in the trunk of a car. Darby then gets behind the wheel of the car and crashes it, flipping it upside down. Darby and Gabe Kidd Darby crawls out of the driver's seat. Gabe hits the trunk latch on the upside down car and spills out of that. Darby goes and finds like a crate on wheels, puts Gabe Kidd on it, wheels his ass into the arena for the match, beats the hell out of him in the ring with his skateboard while Gabe Kidd is in a straitjacket, gets him outside the ring. It's not even a coffin. It's just like a pine box. And they got the box out there, and he's now got Gabe Kidd in the box, in the straitjacket, and Kidd's kind of standing up in the box, and then Darby comes in with his flying torpedo through the top and middle ropes, crashing into Gabe, who falls into the coffin, and then the lid, without even Darby having to close it, falls on top of him. So Darby got the win in the coffin match. Not a big surprise there. And then after the match, he gets on the mic, looks right into the camera, and says that he's going to hold the throttle until he sees God or the AEW World title, and says that he's coming for MJF. So it sounds like that might be our match for Dynasty, MJF defending the title against Darby Allin. And if we're expecting MJF to keep the title until he drops it to Ospreay at All In, although some people think it could be Kenny and Ospreay at All In instead, I think Darby might be just another top-level opponent for MJF to survive, because he did Hangman. Now he's going to have another match against Darby Allin, and then you're going to be going into Double or Nothing, and I'm curious what that title match will be for Max if he survives this one. I'm assuming it's going to have to be against either Kenny or Swerve, who will be battling next week for the #1 contender spot. Which brings me to Swerve, the guy you see right there on the screen. Swerve's the man. We're big Swerve fans on this channel, and he's the guy I want to see more than anyone else on the roster win the AEW title. Even though he's already held it, I want to see him hold it again. I might even want to see Swerve win it more than Darby Allin, and I want to see Darby win it too. But Swerve, I really like, and basically Kenny Omega considers Swerve the #1 contender, and they've got a match next week on Dynamite, and Kenny wants Swerve to put his #1 contender spot on the line, and Swerve basically says that in order for him to do that, Kenny needs to put something of his on the line, and Swerve is not interested in just titles. He's also interested in power, specifically Kenny Omega's power as an executive vice president. So Swerve says, I will put my #1 contendership on the line if you put your EVP status on the line. Now, we did hear, this is a little bit contradictory, we did hear that Kenny, when he re-signed a while back, did not re-sign as an EVP, but maybe this is the original existing contract. I don't know. They might be two separate contracts. But anyway, Kenny's EVP status will be on the line next week in the match with Swerve Strickland, and it reminds me of when Austin became the new CEO or whatever of WWE, and he came out with the red tie. Came out with the red tie on Raw when that was the night of the higher power reveal, if you don't remember. And as bad as that segment was, when he came out there with that red tie, I fucking laughed. One of my good friends, my neighbor who was living across the street, she was at home watching Raw for some reason, and my phone rang 5 seconds after Austin came out there. And I picked it up. She goes, "This is the funniest shit I've ever seen." I'm like, "I'm glad you're watching wrestling. This is great." Excuse me while I check out this text real quick, because it seems like it might be good. Okay, cool. We're good. So Swerve now potentially could be an EVP. Could be an EVP, and that could be fun. But I don't know who to pick in the match next week. I really don't know. We also on Dynamite had Speedball Mike Bailey defeating Mark Davis. That was fun. And they also showed a post-match promo from MJF at Revolution, where he was back there after the match, and he cut a tremendous promo. I loved him in that Terry Funk stuff. That was great. And one of the best promos MJF's ever done, to be honest. And he's still the champ. He's still got his Triple B, and that was a hell of a match. So they showed that promo, which was very good. And then we got to the match between Mina Shirakawa and Marina Shafir. Now, like I said earlier, we talked all about the Toni Storm stuff. It was supposed to be her versus Shafir in a no-holds-barred match, but she gets attacked brutally, murdered backstage, and Mina Shirakawa has vowed that whoever did this to her, she's going to kill them, and she's going to go out there and take Toni Storm's place. The crowd really wasn't expecting that, because when Shirakawa came out, they didn't really react. So I don't know if they weren't aware of what was going on, or if they didn't show the Toni Storm stuff on the Tron. I'm not sure there, but I think fans were kind of surprised that Mina was coming out there and not Toni. And what's even crazier is she wins. This is a no-holds-barred match. Anything goes. These women beat the hell out of each other. They went through a table on the outside of the ring. I assumed that this would just translate into a victory for Marina Shafir. But Mina got the win after all. Smashed a champagne bottle over the head of Marina Shafir and pinned her. So Marina got beat at Revolution and on the following Dynamite. I don't know how smart that was, but whatever. It is what it was. Like I said, all the best to Toni Storm with whatever could be going down there. And then finally on Dynamite, we had Jack Perry and the Young Bucks. They defeated Kazuchika Okada and Roppongi Vice. After the match, Cope and Christian came out to talk to the Bucks. And Copeland says that it is official. Him and Christian are going to be getting a tag team title match at Dynasty versus FTR. They put up the graphic on the Tron. And Copeland talks about how, they took out Beth Phoenix and everything is or Beth Copeland and what they did to his wife, and everything's very, very personal for him as it relates to his feud with FTR. And with the Bucks, it's personal for them as well because they had their family in the front row at Revolution, and their whole issue with the Bucks is deeply personal. And Christian then says, hey, I know it's personal for all three of you, but it's personal for me too, because if we win the tag team titles, that just means more money for me. So Christian is still the asshole. I absolutely love that. And it even says asshole on the Tron, like when he's coming out. And then FTR and Stokely come out to the ring, and for some reason, FTR just enters the ring against these four guys to get murdered because they get speared, super kicked, unprettied, everything. They just walk right into their own execution, which was kind of stupid. And the Bucks and Cope and Christian took out FTR. Now, another thing that a lot of fans have been putting on the radar and kind of sniffing out here is that we probably are going to get a three-way ladder match for the titles at some point after Dynasty. I think Double or Nothing could be a great place for that. You got Dynasty, Double or Nothing, Forbidden Door, then All In. So you've got like 3 pay-per-views before you even get to All In. So I don't know if you can do the ladder match at All In or not. It might have to be done before then, and I think Double or Nothing would be a great spot for that. So that was kind of your Dynamite on Wednesday. I was wanting a little bit more out of the show than what we got, to be honest. I wish they would add a little bit better a show since they did pull in a good rating. But looking at some of the positives there, the coffin match was fun. Sounds like we might know MJF's next challenger. Will Ospreay is back. Big match next week with Kenny and Swerve. And Cope and Christian are on the verge of making some history in AEW. So when you look at all those points, not bad overall. Thought the show could have been better on Wednesday night. Hey, here's what we got going on for tonight's Collision. So Collision is going to be a Saturday and Sunday affair. Tonight on Saturday, we've got Kyle Fletcher and Robbie Eagles for the TNT Championship, the Brawling Birds and the Sisters of Sin, Death Riders versus Commander and Mascara Dorada, and we've got LFI in trios action. And then on Sunday, we have Mystico and Jet Speed versus the Callis family, Orange Cassidy and Strong versus Jay Lethal and Lee Johnson, Ciampa and Lio Rush, and Divine Dominion, the new AEW Women's Tag Team Champions, in action. So that is what's on tap for today and tomorrow. Collision is broke apart across 2 nights due to the NCAA tournament. So on both nights, tonight and tomorrow, Collision will air at the conclusion of whatever the final game is. So that is what's going on this evening. So if you're Collision people, I hope you enjoy. All right, let's take a look at some comments in the chat here, and then I have got to get out of here. Try to go back up to the top. I think the first one we saw here was from our boy, Ryan Adams. Thank you for the $20, bro. I do like that Jade brought back the baddies. Yeah, so maybe that's what they're going to be, the baddies, the WWE version of the baddies. And Mia and Rhea have history. Late 2002 when Judgment Day was feuding with the club. That's right. Rhea kept getting involved until Mia returned siding with Uncle Alan. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So there's a little history between those two as well. Good point there. We got $2 from Garrett Osborne. Yeah, I mean, when I talked about the Ted DiBiase Jr. case, I mean, when I put this on social media yesterday, I'm like, how the hell did he get out of that? Everybody had the same response. Everybody has a price. There might have been some bribery or some, I don't know. We don't know. It'd be crazy to win a fraud case by bribery. Just what the fuck kind of world are we living in here? What are we living in? 2 more from Garrett. Truth and Priest versus Mizhausen at WrestleMania. Oh, God. Maybe. I think Miz is going to be in there with Wilson, though, against Jelly Roll. Unless Kit Wilson just faces Jelly Roll one-on-one. That could also happen. Ryan's got 5 more for us. Jade is in year 5 as a wrestler, has only been pinned 2 times Statlander and Liv Morgan, that's insane. Yeah, that's wild. Morgan and Statlander are the only two women to pin Jade Cargill. I think that's going to be increased to 3 women by the time we get to WrestleMania. We got Chaz. What up, bro? Thanks for being here. Appreciate the $2. Shed a Hogan. Best line of the night. Yeah, he shed a Hogan. That's wild to me. Good to see Zane G in here as well. Daniel Barry Sports. It's Robert, the real DJG. Spartan Sprinkles. Jay Lambo. Joel Drums. Some new names I'm seeing in here from earlier. Daniel Clark. Thanks for hanging out. All right. Normally I would hang out here a little bit more in the chat, but I'm reading some text messages, and we got a nice night down here on the coast in California, in San Diego. It's going to be a nice night at work, so I'm going to go ahead and get my ass down there because we got things going on. They might need me. But anyway, I'm excited to get through tonight because then I'm off for a few days, and I will be back up here tomorrow. As you guys know, we will be back up here tomorrow to watch WrestleMania 30. Make sure you join us 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. We're going to go an hour early live, or an hour earlier than we normally do, because this is a 4-hour show. So I apologize in advance if this is likely going to be going head-to-head with some NCAA tournament games tomorrow. Hopefully your team is not in it, and you can join us for WrestleMania 30. That is going to be a wrap for me today, guys. I got to get out of here, but I want to thank you so much for hanging out, joining us on another Wingy, and we will be catching you tomorrow for WrestleMania 30. Going to be a fun one. I'll catch y'all soon. Peace.